Yes.
Meyer,
Who was that?
Jamie.
Yeah, yes.
okay. Tony,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda this evening under formal actions is the cemetery endowment appointment of Josh Bell.
So moved, Andrew.
Been moved by Councilman Graybon that we appoint Josh Bell to the cemetery endowment committee. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Lee.
Second from Lee.
Oh, you got it.
Okay, state your name. And,
I got it.
okay, thank you guys here. Any further discussion? No further discussion. Ma'am, would you take a roll call vote, please?
Tony,
Yes.
Jamie,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
Todd,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda is to accept the deeds to 523 North Hersey and 400 North Mill. Jason, you have any comments, or Katie, on this?
Yeah, I'll let Katie handle this one.
Okay, so these are the two properties that we recently demolished. And we have not assessed the costs of demolition to the properties yet. That has to be done by ordinance, and we haven't done it yet. I did send that total cost to the conservator. The owner of these properties is in a nursing home and has a court-appointed conservator that cares for her financial needs. He responded and asked if the city would be interested in accepting ownership of those properties in lieu of us assessing those demolition fees. As I think it's in your packet, there are some back taxes. They do total about $1,300 is the total through May 1st. So if that is something that we're interested in doing, we just need to kind of an affirmative vote approving that. And then since it's a court-appointed conservatorship, that conservator will take that to the court and request that the court allow those properties to be transferred out of the conservatorship and over to the city. This particular individual there are no funds to pay the assessment. She does own other properties, but there are other debts that will be ahead of us. So essentially, we would never collect these fees or these assessment costs, which are about, I don't know, one was $7,000, one was $9,000. So Jason and I talked and thought that, taking ownership of these would at least allow us to recover some money. We could turn around and sell these properties and recover a little bit. We will never recover everything that we've spent to demolish them, but having some control over that and being able to recover some money might be a positive thing.
Yeah, the idea kind of too is just to build on what Katie's saying is, probably the expense of continuing to maintain them and deal with them all the time is probably going to fall on us. And fairly consistently over the last 6 months, I've been approached about them. And obviously my response is, well, you got to talk to the property owners. We don't technically own them, but I guess this kind of simplifies that process and gives us probably the best opportunity to limit additional costs, but also recoup some expense, if that makes sense. So, yeah.
Any other questions from council?
What were the addresses again, please?
523 North Hersey and 400 North Mill Street.
Okay, thank you.
If there's no other questions, I entertain a motion to accept the deeds to these two properties.
I have a
So
question.
moved.
I think Tony had a question.
Yeah, Tony?
How would we go about the sale of this property?
Well, once we have ownership and have the deeds in hand, I guess Jason and I really didn't discuss. I know that there are people interested. So it would be a question of whether we want to advertise them for sale or whether if we have people approach us with a fair offer, we can do it that way.
I guess if we advertise them for sale and give everybody the option to place a bid of some sort,
Yeah.
I'm for it.
Yep. And that's been basically probably what we would need to do, Tony, after this is kind of come back. And ultimately, I think, well, I know you guys would have the ultimate say on approving those sales. But yeah, probably the process of doing it and actually listing them for sale in some form probably needs to be directed by you guys as well. So this is kind of that first step to at least make sure that this works. You know, I think the conservator and the court probably has to okay this, and then you know, hopefully we can get the next step of the plan to get this done. Yeah, Matt.
Yeah, I would like to motion that we accept both these properties.
Okay, the motion's been made by Councilman Nadi to accept the deeds on both of these properties. Do I have a second?
I'll second. Jamie.
Second, Andrew.
Jamie, Councilman Meyer seconded the motion. Any further discussion? Mandy, please take a roll call.
Andrew,
Yes.
Lee. Lee,
Yes. Sorry, yes.
sorry, Todd,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes,
Jamie,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda, I entertain a motion for adjournment.
so moved.
Been moved by Councilman Nadi that we adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second by Tony.
Second by Councilman Gingler. Any discussion? Okay, Mandy, take another roll call vote, please.
Todd,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes,
Jamie,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
Lee.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. We stand adjourned. We'll go into the work session. Katie, do you have anything else at this time?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Jason, anything else at this time? Okay. Okay, we'll move on to the discussion items. Ordinance 2270, the truck route amendment. Any questions on this? This was one that I was approached on earlier, or late last year, I think it was, or earlier this year, about the truck traffic on Elm Street and how much is coming through a residential area. And I kind of, you know, my business has some properties out there that generate truck traffic, but I see no reason that trucks, you know, my business doesn't need to be going through there because there's an exit south off of Cottonwood to Elm Street to Asherville Road there. And people can exit to the east and get to 24. They can go to west and get to Highway 14 and get to the south. And then they could go to the east and get out in the old Hyde Road and get across the river that way. And 24 will take them around. Matt.
yeah, I'd just like to add that Main and Elm, where that turns onto that, that intersection is not wide enough to have a semi turn there anyway. So we'd either have to open that up to make it a legitimate or close it down. So I fully support it.
I know there's one residence, I think, that lives on that street that has a semi, but I honestly still don't think should be that big an issue to go south and catch, you know, go west, catch Elm and go south and catch Asherville and then go the other direction to loop around. But, you know, there is a larger amount of younger children playing in that area. We have other areas in town, I know, that we would be more of an issue to try to do some things, but I honestly feel if we have the opportunities where we can make a neighborhood safer, we really need to look at doing that, because it's not really going to constrict anything from my opinion. And I can control. I don't use that area as much as we did, but we still have a lot of truck traffic out there. And I don't think the other businesses out there would have a real problem. At least I wouldn't think they would, but I can't speak for them. Anyway, that's my spin on it. Katie, you had some input?
No, I don't really have anything other than this just have to be done by simple ordinance, and then we would just need to make sure the signage is appropriate, but it's pretty simple.
Hey, Katie, this is Jason. I have a question
Yep.
that I forgot to ask you before, and this would be interesting to everybody. How does this affect, you still have I've seen it, quite a few, just standalone spray rigs, you know what I mean? Like those big 4-wheel, types, running through there. Does that stop them at all? Or is that something we need to, do we need to do a truck and tractor route, or,
Yeah, to be honest, I don't know that we really address tractors, or I don't know how those spray rigs are classified. I'd have to, I guess, look into that a little bit. But we don't really have any ordinances that address tractor or that type of machinery.
which again,
So
I'm not looking to constrict any, I'm not trying to pick on anybody, but that just
Right.
because that is such a hot spot for that kind of activity, there are quite a few just, guys that just rode their stuff through there as opposed to having it on the back of a trailer. So it'd just be something to think about. We might need to research before we bring this.
Yeah.
in further.
we can, I can sure look into that.
Sure. And those sprayers do have blind spots with the booms folded up, hard for the operators to see
Yeah.
if there are children, and that's the main thing, I think, is the young kids, the children might be out running around. I know they're not supposed to be in the street, but those of us with children and grandkids, they get there, unfortunately. So anyway, that's kind of my spin on it. Any other discussion? Okay. With that, we'll move on to the solar RFP review. I think Scott's going to talk to us on that.
Yeah, hi. I think we're just, Jason and I have been working on this a little bit, just trying to figure out the request for proposal for solar there. I believe it's right there by the wastewater plant, correct, Jason?
Yeah, that's kind of what we were thinking. And just to give everybody we got some new folks, but this is Scott Shreve, and he's with Priority Power. So he's kind of our power consultant, been with us for quite a few years now, and kind of helps us, with our rate structure and all sorts of stuff like that. So yeah. So Scott and I have kind of been talking, and obviously the council has been, the last about year or two now, probably, about the potential solar installation, and kind of the potential location for it would be out there by the sewer plant. And primarily because obviously it's right next to one of our big circuits, so it can feed into that, but also one of our main feed lines, which is also really important. And kind of like I wrote in the packet there, the goal with it is to make sure that it meets a couple goals. Obviously, it helps our reliability. It kind of helps take the peak load off at that, during those hot summer months. But also it provides potentially a community solar aspect to our community. Being in Kansas and renewables and alternative energy, it's kind of an exciting time. So this allows people to potentially, if we get this right, to buy into it and to have solar, that they can purchase, some sort of a program, as opposed to having to put it on their own property and maintain it. It's all kind of in one mass location. And then the last part of it, obviously, is it has to make some economic sense. So obviously, we want this to be a benefit to our customers if they can. And solar, first of all, its productivity is higher than it's ever been, because obviously technology gets better as it goes along. And then it's also probably cheaper than it's ever been. Now again, if those things continue to those curves continue to happen, but they're probably at a reduced rate as this technology matures. So it's kind of a better time for us to potentially explore it. So I guess I said that whole background story because again, we've talked about this over times in bits and pieces, and so basically what we're looking at is potentially a 1 to 2 megawatt system. And again, we're about a 12 to 13 max megawatt power usage at peak time. Obviously, this thing won't spit out 1 or 2 megawatts all the time because it's solar and relies on the sun. But and so what I asked Scott to put together, and he can kind of explain really quickly too, is kind of an RFP. So it's a request for proposal, so that we can. There's a lot of companies and folks out there trying to sell this stuff right now. And so we get requests all the time, and basically this is going to help us have everybody provide kind of the same, maybe 4 different type of proposals that I've kind of got listed here. And so that way we can have real numbers to kind of crunch and determine, okay, how does this affect rates? What does this look like for a community solar project? Kind of all those things we've been talking about, but now with some real potential numbers from all these different vendors. So Scott, did I do an okay job on that?
You did a great job.
Okay.
Any questions?
So now you can, yeah. So now you can dig a little deeper into it, I guess, as far as what we're looking for, maybe, and that kind of.
You did a great job of overview of that. Today the city takes about 60% of your power comes from GRDA, and it's about a $40 product, and it's going to last for another 5 or so years. But the city has their own generation, and because you have generation, you're able to buy off the market. And again, you guys were just kind of talking about it. Loads are down. The mom and pop shops are closing right now. Manufacturing. I mean, there's a lot of loads that are coming off, and so natural gases. I mean, gasoline in the pump is cheap. Natural gas is low. A lot of wind is being installed. I've been in this business. I know this looks like a dark black beard, but I've been in this business for a long time. And we would never have had any conversation about wind or, solar 5 years ago, 10 years ago. It just was astronomical. It was too costly. And then the technology has come along. And I'm really interested in what comes of this project, because what we're asking for is a full price. What's it going to cost for somebody to build it and turn the keys over to us? What's that cost? I'm really intrigued by what that would look like, because like you said, Jason, and a lot of my municipalities people are knocking on the door all the time wanting to know, sell the solar. And this is also, and like Jason had talked about, a community solar where you guys we could develop a rate where you don't have to put it in your backyard. You could buy some panels or buy solar and have it delivered to your house, if you will, or delivered to your industrial or commercial customers. So it's got a lot of good things about it. We just don't know what the numbers are going to look like, but that's why we're kind of putting together the RFP, and we're going to send that out. We're just looking for a fixed price. What's that cost to turn it over the keys? There's ITCs, investment tax credits, that somebody can take advantage of, that obviously municipals can't take advantage of that. So we're trying to see if maybe power purchase agreement, a PPA, and what would that look like for them to own it for 7, 10, and 25 years. We've got in these examples, and then they would give us a balloon payment after year 7, year 10, and year 25. So I'm really intrigued by it. Jason and I are kind of fine tuning that, and then we try to get that on the streets, and really just I think we're just trying to find out suitable qualified contractors to do it, and just get some bids and see what that would look like, and then present it back to you. But it's a really neat project, and like you said, it's behind the meter. There's advantages for you to have that behind the meter. You get capacity. And kind of like if you had another generator at your plant, but it's take advantage of that. But like Jason said, it comes right off of your load. The generator would take some of that load off. We're talking about 1 to 2 megawatts. We're talking about maybe 2,000 to 4,000 megawatt hours a year, which again is roughly 4 to 8, 9% of your entire load. So we're not talking about a tremendous amount of your energy coming from this, but it's just a nice peaking plant that it may or may not make sense, but we wanted to find out. So that's why I was kind of asked to kind of bring you up to speed on this.
Yeah, Scott, when we put this out, how long? When would we? Let's say we get this out first part of next week. Is that like a 3 or 4 week period before we would get anything back? Is that what would be on for a limit, or how long do these guys need to do something?
Yeah, normally if 2 or 3 weeks, they have a pretty good idea. We can, they can typically do a lot of it by Google Maps and those kind of things. With this COVID thing, it may take a little longer, but I would think by the end of May, if we got it out by the 1st of May, 4 weeks, I think would be plenty of time for them to get their numbers together and get the information and ask questions. So,
and again, with the COVID thing, there's always the silver lining. Maybe this is you might even get better deals, you know,
Right.
so people
Exactly.
might be looking to do stuff. So, but anybody have questions for Scott on this, or been able to look through it? Again, it's just, we're just trying to get some numbers so we know what we're doing.
Any questions for Scott? Okay,
This is Terry Bailey from the newspaper, Scott.
Hi, Terry.
You would develop specifications and such to include in a proposal that they would bid on?
You said we would have specifications, yes, that they would make bids too, correct?
Right.
And their qualifications as well, yes. We've kind of left it kind of, I guess on purpose, and that's Jason and I've talked about it, we've kind of left it wide open because maybe there's something better that they would like to offer to us that, you know, we're not thinking of. But to answer your question, yes, we'll have some pretty specific specifications of production and what that's going to produce on a yearly basis and those kind of things. Yes.
Okay. If there's no more questions for Scott, we'll move along. Thanks a lot, Scott.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. Thanks for driving all the way out.
It's gonna be a short drive home. Thank you.
Yeah. We're not paying mileage for this, okay?
What? Oh my gosh, you're killing me. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thanks. Good.
Okay, next thing on the agenda is the crosswalks for 8th and Hersey. I think Jason has some information on this.
So again, we've kind of touched on this a little bit, but again, these are just things that we're trying to keep moving forward. So hopefully you kind of saw in your packet kind of some of the potential 2 locations that we would like to at least try to start with this year, you know, if we can firm up some of these numbers. And I kind of wanted to make sure before I put a lot of effort to contact some, you know, the system, you know, to try to get a better number. Again, these are just kind of initial quotes, that those 2 locations were kind of fine with you guys to work on. And again, you know, the first location that we're really interested in doing, again, we try to tie around where the Safe Routes to School projects were happening or are scheduled to happen. And the first one is obviously that 24 crossing. You know, it's a 4-lane crossing, and just basically trying to really supplement and make it safer for not only the crossing guard that would be there or is there at times, but also because that's a crossing that's used so much more than just during school. So, you know, it's kind of an investment. Obviously, it's a big number, but in the scheme of traffic control, it's really not that big of a number. I mean, I think, you know, a traffic light system, which we're not asking for here, but just give you perspective. I mean, those run anywhere from $100,000 to $200,000 to put in, you know, a big set of traffic lights anymore. So, you know, this one maybe in the $20,000 range, and that would be, you know, those smart push button type crossings, have, you know, lights in the road, to help raise awareness. Obviously the signs would be lit, you know, all those types of things I think would be a really good addition to that location. And especially now that we've got the 8th Street Safe Routes to School project approved. Now, again, it's still a few years off from being put in. You know, with that, plus the 2B that's about to start here in another week or 2, that's going to be crossing it, you know, basically improving that crossing or bringing more sidewalk on the north and south side of it. Now it's the time to really explore that fully, but I kind of wanted to gauge interest that, you know, if we put that extra work into it to kind of give you guys the full deal and brought it for some action, that there would be some interest in that. The second location, just maybe trying to do a 2-for-1 and maybe get some additional discounts or who knows what, is going to be up there on Hersey at 12th Street, again, where that Safe Routes to School crossing is. They've gone across, you know, about 2 years ago. Again, that one they've quoted out at about $6,800, and hopefully we can get a better deal on that. But again, this one's solar powered, and we kind of have a test subject here down at Nutrien. Tom Nutrien purchased some solar powered, you know, truck. You know, I can't remember what trucks entering and exiting type signs. Yeah, some warning signs. So if you have a chance, you can drive down there and see those. Nutrien paid for those and bought those, and so kind of gives you the idea what the LED looks like and how that solar operation works. And that's kind of the same thing here. Again, this would have kind of have that flashing warning sign, et cetera, to really raise awareness and bring awareness to folks, kids primarily, but anybody trying to cross that area. So I guess I don't know if anybody had questions on that or thoughts as we try to maybe move forward and bringing kind of more of an actionable item for you guys to approve, potentially to put in.
Jason, I'm sorry, I faded out there a little bit. The first location was that at 8th and Bell?
8th and Bell, yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Yeah, it's really just trying to enhance that crossing,
Yeah,
So,
that would need it.
so yeah, if you kind of see, I don't know if you remember that presentation before, it's a little more difficult right now, but this one has some flashers that are built into the street that kind of outline the crosswalk. And then it has some signs with some push button type stuff to help, illuminate that when people would want to cross and help control traffic. And obviously that one's a little bit more complicated because we're going to have to work with KDOT and do those types of things to try to get that in. But I figured earlier we'd try to start working on that. Probably the better.
Sounds great.
Yeah, because that one just makes me cringe. And I know it's been that way for a lot of years. That's always a good comeback, but I don't know.
Well, even in full sunlight, these signs are very visible. You can see them from a block away flashed, and they're brighter in the daytime than they are at night, but they're still very visible. So they're down there on Elliott Street if a person wants to take a drive this evening, take a look at them.
Further down the road, I could see up there on Hersey, we would do some when that, obviously this project, they're going to do some improvements up there. Sorry, not Hersey, but up there by the high school, North Walnut. But I could see us, putting something more robust in there once we get North Walnut rebuilt, here in a couple of years. So that would probably be the next one. And then over there by the Catholic elementary school, again, probably the same thing. If we were able to ever continue to do some improvements up East Main Street to, again, kind of do some improvements on that, because I'm not sure, Heather, you might remember too, is there much sidewalk on that north side of that, that kind of that school zone there by this elementary school, but I don't know if there's much sidewalk over there. Yeah. So again, but those are kind of some spots that there's a lot of school activity that those could be kind of the next phases down the road for stuff like this. But yeah.
Any other questions on the crosswalk lighting?
And sorry to keep hitting on this, and probably what I'll do, again, since we're kind of in unique times right now for you guys to really see this, it's hard for me to present that, but I'm going to send a couple links tomorrow to this website's pretty nice. It kind of can show you some of this stuff better. And again, we kind of saw it a couple months ago, but that way you can kind of visualize it better. And then hopefully by the time maybe we're getting close to trying to actually approve it, we're all back together and it's a lot easier to see this stuff. So.
Okay, thank you, Jason. Next item on the agenda, discussion items, is the animal control ordinance updates and amendments. Katie, you want to lead off with that, or you want Doug, or?
That'll probably be me.
Or Jason.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Jason's going to take it for now to start with.
Okay, thank you, Katie.
All right. I think you all saw my write-up, so I won't get into it too far, besides, to kind of hit some of the highlights, just to kind of get the table set for Todd and Jamie as well. So I think back in 2017 is when we first really tackled, or not first, but one of the most recent times we tackled our dog ordinance and animal control ordinance. And basically at that point, we went from a breed-specific language to really more focusing on the behavior and the activity of the dog. So we went to that dangerous, vicious dog language. That's worked pretty good for us. Obviously, there's still been some growing pains really at first, and Doug could always chime in too if he has to, but just from talking with him, at first we were kind of having a lot of bite issues. You kind of had some different dog types and stuff kind of come into town right after we made that change, and it kind of made us nervous. We kind of had some discussions, and Katie even mentioned that she had it on her calendar. We need to probably talk about it some more. As this ordinance has continued to work and we've gotten better at it, it's gotten better. However, there obviously has still been some difficult cases and some unique cases that are tough, and they're always going to be tough and tough to legislate. But it kind of really made us, thought it would be good timing to kind of bring it back to you guys to say, hey, here's the parts that are working. Being able to define the dogs and work with them and get them potentially moved out of town is beneficial, and we've been able to do that. I'm going to try to share this with you guys. Hopefully you can see this. So can you see this graph here right now, everybody, or the people can see? And I'll explain it. So basically, this is kind of just a breakdown of kind of what that's looked like the last 2 years. And this first, the blue is 2018, the orange is 2019. And basically in 2018 and 19, this first two columns are really talking about how many phone calls on estimated phone calls we're getting on dog. Doug is the one that the point person has to deal with these, and this can be anywhere from a dog's loose to he's barking to he looks malnourished to whatever, that type of stuff. And so so that's basically on average maybe close to 100 calls a year, so maybe 2 calls a week or thereabouts that Doug's getting, and a lot of those he's able to head off and deal with either a phone call or a visit or whatever. From that, we usually get about, or not usually, we've had about 33 and 32 in respective years, formal requests or notices for abatement. So that's where Doug has to take those calls, and they filter down to, hey, you're trying to be the friendly neighborhood code enforcement officer, and it usually takes care of itself. To out of those that don't, there's still about a third of them that has to go further. So we give a notice to abate, or we're giving them a formal request to do something. And then from there, it goes down to, from what the data that Katie was able to provide me, about 12 to 15 cases a year that actually are in court. And again, some of these are either too bad. Obviously it skips the phone call and it skips the notice to abate. It basically goes right to court because it was a bad situation to that point. So that kind of gives you a breakdown of that activity. Obviously, we've had a good increase in the dog registrations. Again, that would we have an average about 50 to 60 dog registrations a year. Now we're over 200, and the staff here have done a really good job, especially a utility sign up of asking people and getting that. So that number is only going to continue to increase. I say all that because obviously those are really important to have knowledge if the dog's registered, if the dog has its rabies shot, if the dog has its vaccinations, because when Doug has to deal with it, or there is a dog bite situation or whatever, if we can know that information really fast and right away, and also have made sure that that's been done, it makes everybody's life a lot easier. Unfortunately, what we really come down to, and kind of the issues that we have with the ordinance at this point, it's going to really help us, is kind of these 3 points. And the first one is kind of just, and again, we're not asking for action, we're just kind of setting the table here, is really a review and discuss of the leash law. Again, we kind of have a modified or a hybrid leash law. I'm gonna stop sharing this. So basically you have to keep your dog on a leash unless you can keep it under really strict voice control, etc. Again, really what we're having going on, the biggest issues that we're having going on with any sort of dog bite or dog fight situation is loose dogs. And it's just dogs that are either being let out the front door, or they're not under control, or people think they are. And it's kind of hard when we have that caveat in there. And I know it's hard on people because they can voice control their dog to a degree, but that's just one part of it. The second part is, really review and discuss the schedule of fines. Again, in most of these situations, a lot of our situations arise from people letting their dogs just roam free or be loose or be out on their property thinking it's going to be fine, and somebody either walks by or a dog walks by, and that's when stuff happens. And typically, a lot of these people, if there's a loose dog, they're going to get a verbal warning. If it's not a big situation, Doug's going to give them a call. If it happens again, Doug's probably going to send them a letter. And if it happens a third time, that's when they end up in court. Okay, so if they're ended up in court and are on the potential to get fined, they've really, for most instances, they've been warned twice already. We've been pretty nice about it. And that's 3 instances at that point that there could have been something really bad happens. And in some cases, it does happen. And so what we're really struggling with is, again, it kind of boils down to just a few dog owners, typically is how it goes, that are probably causing the bulk of the burden and instances, the negative instances as well, that could happen. So what we're really talking about and exploring, want to pose to you guys to think about is really kind of an escalation of fines. Right now we have, and Katie, maybe you can speak to this, but I think we talked.
Do you want to go? I'll just go and cut in real quick as far as what those fines look like for not only dog at large, but most of our animal cases have the same fine schedule, with the exception of the dangerous ordinance. But first time at court running at large is only a $25 fine. and then they have to pay the $100 court cost. So it's $125. They come back a second time, it's a $50 fine, pay the $100 court cost. Third time, $75 fine, $100 court cost. There's a handful of folks in town that have their repeats, and they don't have a problem paying that $100 and some dollars, and it doesn't seem to get their attention. So that's, and by the time we see them in court, like Jason said, they've already been talked to 2 or 3 times about their animal running at large. We're hitting them with only a $25 fine, and they write the check and go about their day, and then 2 weeks later their dog's out again. So that's where we're at right now with our fine schedule. It's very minimal, as opposed to our other crimes that occur. Those fines generally range from $75 up to $150. It's kind of the range of fines for other things that go on in town that we'd see in court.
Yeah. But again, a lot of this stuff is not necessarily the dog or it's a bad dog. We're really struggling with some pet owners. So then the last part is kind of to that point is, so obviously you have, talk about the leash law, talk about the schedule of fines, especially when it pertains to loose dogs. And then the third part is, some sort of code enhancement ideas just to deal with perpetual violators. Katie and I and Doug were joking a little bit, but in seriousness, if we could just eliminate the bad dog owners, just say, hey, you can't have a dog anymore, that would make all of our jobs, a lot easier, and also probably provide a little bit safer environment for our citizens and those that are trying to do the right thing. But the legality of that might be difficult. But really, what we're looking at is, we talk about what's a good dog, what's a dangerous dog, what's a vicious dog. It's kind of the same, caveats of what's a good pet owner and what's not a good pet owner. And if you don't meet those certain criteria, then maybe you shouldn't own a dog. We don't know exactly what that looks like. And then the second part of that too is just kind of bringing in the landlords a little bit with this. A lot of these situations are people that are tenants of landlords, and the landlord doesn't even technically allow dogs on the property, and so we talk to the landlord and they act like they didn't know about it, or they say, well, they're not supposed to have a dog. Well, from a liability standpoint, the renter's insurance isn't going to cover anything, and so how do we kind of tie in the landlord in that situation, or bring some responsibility to this? Because again, that's kind of where we're running into. There's times where it's working, and again, we've run some rough dogs out of town, but there's times where we can lower the chances of bad things happening if we can get pet owners to be more responsible. Especially the certain ones. Again, a lot of pet owners are. I want to put that in there. Obviously, most pet owners are responsible, but again, those few pet owners that don't want to be or aren't very responsible, that are kind of burning the system and causing dangerous situations to occur. So Doug or Katie, I don't know if you want to add anything to that or not.
No, like you said at the beginning, I think our biggest issues are irresponsible ownership and the dogs at large. I don't know that our issue is dangerous dogs. I don't know that our issue is some of these other things. It really comes down to dogs aren't kept inside and they aren't kept in their pen, and that's when we have problems.
Katie, or Doug, you can answer this. Is there certain areas of town that probably is worse than other areas?
I have dabbled a little bit with the dog at large complaints, keeping a map of those, and you'd be surprised at the side of town that's at.
Really?
Yeah, probably 65% of my dog at large calls come from the west side of town.
Okay.
I'd like to chime in here on this for a sec. Am I on?
Yeah.
Yep, I can hear you.
Yeah, sorry, Matt. Yep, go ahead.
Okay. Well, this is a historical problem we've had, and it always comes down to we can't get the vet to put these dogs away because they're customers. You know, the customer comes in, wants his pet out. The vet cooperates with the citizen, not the city. So really, to me, the only answer to this is a city pound, and that's going to be dollars. And we have balked at the price tag that goes along with that in the past. So I'm really not seeing anything that's different. This is a historical problem. We're doing the best we can with the law we got.
I would actually interject on that a little bit, Mr. Roddy. The vet and my relationship has come an awful long way since I first took this job, and I'm not having trouble with folks that I need to address being given dogs ad hoc from the vet. They're cooperating with my holds. If it's somebody that I haven't been able to run down or everything, when they go out there to the vet, they're telling them, you got to talk to Doug first. So I would say that's not the issue that it once was by a long shot.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, I think the main issue, I think, you know, two of the probably three most recent dog bite situations that I can think of, two of them were just loose dogs. Would that be correct, Katie? I mean, that I'm thinking of, and I may think same cases, but I can think of three. You know what I mean? And two of them were again loose dogs, and that's the thing I think that we're really trying to get at is how can we not incentivize or de-incentivize people from letting their dogs just, you know, be loose, and it's going to happen, but we've got to limit that. We can't have the same people in 5-6 times with that loose dog, because one of the times it's going to run into the wrong dog and we're going to have a problem.
This is Andrew. I got a question about what kind of fees are we thinking of raising these fines to?
Well, I don't have a great answer for that, but other than I can tell you that our repeat offenders, our current fine schedule does not seem to bother them, if that's the right word. It doesn't seem to affect their behavior enough. I will say we've got one individual that I can think of. I think he was in 3 times, in court 3 times, which means Doug probably talked to him 5 or 6 times, and he finally got an appropriate enclosure. So it took about $500 in fines, and I think we finally got his attention. But so I don't know what that number is, but the $25, you know, they come in, they say, oh, that's not a big deal, here you go, and they're out the door. And
Could we go the fines up like $100, and then the next time $200, and the next time $300, and really put some buy into it?
And just so you guys, I went through all the cases as far as the disposition, just so you're aware of how I handle these cases. So 9 times out of 10, if a running at large case comes in, it's also a failure to register. Or a no proof of rabies vaccine. So they're usually charged with 3 different things. So when they come into court, if they can prove to me that they've registered the animal and they have the shot record there, then I will usually dismiss those 2 counts, and they'll only be fined on the running at large. So I'm already discounting them at least $50. So, I mean, I think something like 100 is probably appropriate, because really they're only getting hit with that running at large fine because they've remedied the other problem, because we really just want to encourage them to register the animal, and most of them do, so they don't have to pay that fine.
Looking at the document you attached afterwards, it talks about a conviction of a second or subsequent offense, and you do mention in letter C of that the 5 not greater than 500 or by the imprisonment for a period of not exceeding 6 months. Have we ever had to or thought seriously about going to an imprisonment for someone's handling?
No, that's our most recent dangerous dog ordinance, and we have never had anybody that's had a second offense. If somebody has a dangerous dog and it has either run at large or been involved in an incident, and that dog was already declared dangerous, then Doug has been able to remove that animal from the city. But no, we've never had anybody that's been jailed or anything. But again, that's a process where that dog has to be first declared dangerous. then that dog, I say the owner has to offend, which means that dangerous dog has to be running at large. And that's when that particular ordinance kicks in that has those really high fines. Most dogs in town, 99% of the dogs in town are not quote unquote dangerous. So they fall into the category where it's just $25 for running at large.
Oh, okay, so it's the lower end that we're really more talking about increasing fees to try to get a greater enforcement versus the upper end? Okay.
Right, yeah. Like I said, because most of the problems we have are animals that have not been declared dangerous. They're just your average family pet, but there happens to be running at large all the time.
I guess I like the fact that maybe we try to work with our, the people too first, and so in my mind that allows us to be a little more aggressive on the fine, because if they've had 2 or 3 warnings along the way, and that's like, okay, now it's time to get more serious. So I guess maybe double the fine that where we're at right now, and have it escalate, on up as they repeat.
And I also put this caveat out there too, and it's also really difficult. Sometimes you're going to have cases that just don't fit the mold, right, Katie? I mean, the best way to say it. So some of the, we can legislate. It's really difficult sometimes because you're going to have such unique circumstances. Just like we can think about how some of these things can happen. So what we're really trying to do is trying to continue to lower that exposure. It's going to happen. People are going to be people and not be responsible, or a bad situation is going to happen. But it can get to be a resource suck, first of all, for Doug, because it's some of the same folks all the time. But also it just increases the chances of something bad happening.
Well, it always boils down to we got irresponsible pet owners.
Yeah. How do you legislate responsibility? That's the tough part. So
a large fine.
I would think $100 or $150 would get my attention.
Yeah,
you would think.
I think that's what it's going to take.
Yeah, right from the get-go.
Yeah. So we'll
Katie,
work.
have you? Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Doug. Sorry.
Katie, have you checked with other cities around us and everything, what their fine schedule is or anything?
Not recently, not since I worked on that dangerous dog, or I can almost guess that our $25 is probably pretty low.
Would agree.
So but I haven't recently.
Okay.
Got a dog objecting there? Somebody got a dog?
Yeah. Got a situation right there.
Objecting to the fine.
So,
handle that dog.
I think what Katie and I will do, just because it's kind of a pertinent subject, but what Katie, I, and Doug will probably do is, since it's been almost 3 years, is probably kind of do some of that research, do some modifications, and kind of we just kind of want to share with some of the struggles that were not struggles, but just some of the issues with the ordinance. Again, lots of parts of it work. Doug's doing good work. It's I rarely ever hear anything. And there's some tough situations out there. So, but this just gives us an opportunity to continue to improve that. And it's probably time for one of those kind of a little bit more comprehensive reviews, not just some tweaks. So we'll kind of prepare that and bring that back.
I do have another follow-up question, I guess. Do we label the owner in any way, shape, or form as a negligent owner for failure if they are repeatedly failing?
We really don't, other than if they've been convicted of mistreatment of an animal. As far as the running at large, from what I can tell, is that we've always been very dog specific. So, animal or homeowner has an animal and it's been out 3 or 4 times, and they finally get rid of it, but then they go get a new one, and we continue, and then we start to have problems with the new one. We don't start over at 5 or 6. We start back at 1. So that's something I have to look at, is tying it more to the owner, the dog, because
that's what I was wondering, is if we could label a negligent owner and perhaps somewhere ban that owner from owning another animal, or saying that, they have to go through certain steps or something for future. Because again, it's not the animal in some respects that we're concerned about. It's the owner not taking care of or disciplining, or however you want to put it, the dog in the first place.
Yeah, exactly.
I would say that the couple of times when we've had owners that have had dogs that for whatever reason had to leave town, when they got the next dog and it started being a problem, I didn't start all over with the, talk nice and handshake.
Right.
I went straight to get him into court on those. They don't, once that owner has exhibited a pattern, they don't get the free chances with another dog or another set of dog. Although in court, the fines do start over at the lower amount because it's a separate dog issue.
I kind of like what Andrew's saying. That's kind of what I was telling Katie too, and kind of like exactly to your point, Andrew. We define the dogs. I kind of wish we could define the owners to some degree. Somehow we have some sort of I agree with you. I like your word, negligent owner. If you're classified as a negligent owner, there's got to be some ramifications to that, because what Doug's hitting on is exactly true. We kind of have the same people. Oh, that dog we chased it out of town. All of a sudden, boom! 6 months later, another one. Being crazy. Yeah. So.
Jason,
yeah,
I'd like to add to that. Use the money raised in fines to warn the people of the community of the owners of vicious dogs. If you get convicted of a vicious dog ordinance violation, your name gets published in the paper, so your neighbors know you got a vicious dog, and maybe a little social stigma might curb that too.
Yeah. That's something we can look at, sure.
Yeah, I mean, we used to have municipal court. It always used to be in the paper. That was just, they're open records, and they used to do that. I don't know why they don't anymore, but so I mean, if you look at it like I guess I could kind of, Jason brought this up the other day, kind of like a driver's license. You get so many infractions and then you lose it. So we can certainly look at that. I need to research that a little bit, but I guess I just want to advise everybody. We have all kinds of people driving around town without driver's licenses. So we're never going to completely address the problem, but hopefully we can make a few changes that'll help a little bit, but we're always going to have irresponsible owners. We can't completely fix that, but we'll try.
Yeah, but the more we can do to help Doug and yourself with your job to enforce and maintain, what we need to have happen here, the better. So.
Yeah.
I would say that probably at least a fair percentage of the people we're dealing with are used to having their name in the paper anyway.
That's very true.
Well, that's going to gain us anywhere, although it might be something new anyway.
Kind of sums it up though, Doug.
Yeah.
Well, I'd be interested to see what Katie can come up with as far as a negligent owner or something to that effect, looking for future ideas. So.
Okay, any other comments on the dog ordinance? Okay, I think that kind of wraps up our meeting unless somebody has anything else. But again, thanks everyone for making it to the meeting, taking the time out. And
see you May 6th.
Just shows next winter when we have a bad storm, we can still have our meeting.
Exactly.
But thanks a lot, everyone, and everyone be safe.
Thanks, guys. Good night. See you, Katie.
See ya.
Good night.
Good night.